Hello and welcome to the British Motorsport Yearbook 1991. We'll be looking at Formula Vauxhall Lotus, a new formula with Formula Vauxhall Junior. Moving on from there, there'll be the mobile Honda CRX Challenge to see. And also Formula Renault, more single-seaters. A new saloon formula for 1991, the Renault Clio Elf UK Cup. And that perennial favourite, the Porsche Super Cup, this time sponsored by Frank Shorter, and the Autofarm Modified Sports Championship. It's March and Mallory Park, and Formula Vauxhall Lotus is off to its 4th year. This is round 1. 2 litres, lead-free engine, all of them in the same chassis, and some tremendous racing ahead of us. Ex-Formula Ford star Warren Hughes led off and got some advantage from Lakin Hanisset and Jason Elliott with a 1-minute penalty for jumping the start. While at Shaw's hairpin, Alexandre Andrade lost his nose cone. Michael Edgar and Jeremy Cottrell collided on the step straight, but they both walked away unhurt from a big accident. We pick it up in the final stages of the race with Richard Hay.
And they're as close now as there's ever been. And Jason Elliott has also caught up onto the back of the group. And Hughes there is not finding a way past the back marker in front of him. This will cost him time. Things are difficult now for Warren Hughes, 23. Marc Chavot is the man in front of him. Chavot now lets them through. All 3 cars go through. The next man that they have to deal with is 18 there, Vernon Davies. And Elliott there, through on the inside of Lakin. Lakin, I suspect, wasn't watching his mirrors. He was trying to find a way past Hughes and forgot all about the fact there might be another man behind him. Over the line they go once again, and Scott Lakin is now back into 3rd place. Elliott, as we said earlier, probably unaware of the 1-minute penalty that he's got, and thinks he's now racing in 2nd place. In truth, it'll probably drop him down somewhere towards the lower end of the top 20. Now, once again, the leader has got caught with the back markers. This time it's Vernon Davies, and this has allowed all of the rest of the field to close up. Those first 5 cars really are very close together indeed now. Past they go, Hughes, then Elliott, then Lakin, then Hanisset. On now to the final lap. Now Hughes dives for the inside, try and get past Vernon Davies. And Davies, I think, may not have seen him. The man that lost out most from that was Jason Elliott. He had to ease off, and that's allowed Lakin to pull out of the slipstream. He's alongside there, and he's also coming alongside Hughes as they come up towards the S's. And there was almost how he got through there, I'll never know, and I don't think he will either. As they come up towards the hairpin for the final time, it's Lakin in front, and he must win it now, but he lets Hughes through on the inside. Hughes is through. Elliott is almost through as well. Davies is still in front of them. And Hughes comes through to take the checkered flag. Scott Lakin right behind him.
And that was the way they finished. In April, it was on to Silverstone for the 2nd round. And if the weather was still cold, the competition was still hot. This time, Piers Hanisset leading Kelvin Bird, Scott Lakin and Jason Elliott right up there in 4th place. As Bird pressured Hanisset, Elliott passed Lakin for 3rd. But Hanisset was having an easy time of it at the front. On the last lap, a huge effort by Elliott, but it all came to nothing. Hanisset held his head and held his lead across the line. For Vauxhall Junior, their debut was at Silverstone, and the little 1600cc Nova engine cars were already providing some close racing. In the early stages, Scotsman Dario Franchetti got away to a good start. Alain Corbiot in 2nd place, Marco Vignali 3rd, and David Cuff and James Netherby following up. The ex-Scottish kartist was making it look all too easy. But then trouble intervened. With the Scotsman out, Vignali was leading a snapping pack behind him. Corbiot, Cuff and Netherby hanging on in there. Copse corner and Vignali trying to take the wide line through. It didn't come off and through went the other three. Corbio into the lead and the pack joined by Kevin McGarrity. By now Copse was applying some pressure and found a way through going into Copse corner. McGarrity, on the other hand, performed an Irish reel. Younger brother Jaime was trying to follow Roberto Guerrero's footsteps at Silverstone, while Jules Gilson's followed nobody. Then Alain Corbio tried that last lap manoeuvre. And what do you know, it didn't come off. So David Cuff was left to take the first win for him and the first win for Vauxhall Junior. At Thruxton on Easter Monday, Andy Ackley was away out in front. Russell Grady and Mickey Allen right behind him. Ackley, so often unlucky in the championship, really trying to do it right this time. Lisa Thackwell's season didn't start any better than last one finished. She was delayed, avoiding other people's accidents. The last lap and a big battle for second, third and fourth. Nigel Smith, Russell Grady and Mickey Allen trying conclusions. Not enough road, so Russell Grady took to the grass. Across the line he went in third place behind Ackley, who was losing time, nearly running out of fuel. Donington Park on the next run was a different story as far as the winner was concerned. Rick Shortall storming off in the lead. Through the Craners, Shortall was holding off Gibson and Ackley. Pearce and Kay, however, were holding off nothing, except perhaps the bank. Ackley now made his effort and snatched second place from Gibson. And Gibson was a man soon to find himself under pressure, with Chris Boone and Nigel Smith also fighting a tight battle. Dennis Bunny found himself in the midst of some trouble there. And another man to find some was Bob Addison, clipping the front of Gibson's car and spinning out of contention. At the flag, it was Rick Shortall who did the business. Andy Ackley hanging on in there to finish second. Silverstone was the second round of Formula Renault. Jason Plato led off, but the philosophy behind him didn't work out, as Harry Nuttall's engine cover flew off and confusion was complete. Bobby Roden-Rowe snatched second at Beckett's, and Tommy Antolainen gave them a shower of dirt to contend with. Tim Stafford fell out with Farmer Ringo behind, and Chris Goodwin was the man to take advantage of that by snatching third. But then things fell over for Goodwin, and once again the doctor's son was out of the race. So Jason Plato showed them the way home in the second round of the Renault Championship at Silverstone. The new Renault Clios were just as exciting as the Renault Turbos. Mark Fish and Steve Wardby sorting it out for the lead, while Andy Ackley and Holwood had a look at the barrier. Fish and Wardby really struggling it out there up front. Carl Jones was going well, but suddenly he was on the grass. 2 places down, and when he repeated the manoeuvre at the next corner, it was 2 more down the field for him. Wardby, on the other hand, made a determined attack. The inside wide open, and through he goes into the lead. It wasn't a good day for the Joneses at Donington. Steve Jones proved it by outbraking himself, leaving Hayden Measham and Mike Mills to fight it out. When Mills disposed of Measham, it was David Kay's turn to have a go. And he did. Wardby, however, went on to take a good win here at Donington. In the Frank Shorter Porsches, there were some tremendous dices. The men to watch were Tony Dron, Brian Robinson and Bob Berridge. And Berridge put up a pretty determined fight. The 944 making an impossible manoeuvre there to take the lead. Dron and Robinson weren't too happy about that and came back in a pretty firm manner. But the high ground at Redgate was taken by the 944. Up came Mike Yules to see what he could do. And the answer, not a lot. But for Robinson, a dive on the inside was to pay off. And Tony Dron was the next man to try conclusions and succeed. Tom Seagrove threw his 944 away. And eventually Robinson was pressured into mistakes as well. So Long John did it all over again. If David Sonisher had a good start in May at Mallory, Steve Smith had a bad one, but at least they all missed him. Behind Sonisher, Vignali, Van Buren, Kauf and Edwards were tightly packed. While Jeff Prince got two other people to join him off the circuit. Kevin McGarity was coming up fast. While Kauf and Franchitti were also in the hunt. Then Kauf started to press Vignali. And eventually got through. But it was all too late to catch David Sonisher. The clears at Preston for round 2 of this new championship were just as exciting as ever. At least if you were David Kay in front. Probably even more exciting if you were followed by Mills, Ackley and Wardby. John Wadsworth watched Ackley spin. While Wardby fought with Mills every inch of the road. Mills grabbed second, or just about. But it was Kay who won the contest. It was green for danger at Silverstone. Mike Yules in the lead, and a tremendous battle. Berridge in the middle of the sandwich and Ross Hyatt behind. Graham Clark spun his chances away and Berridge grabbed the lead. Steve Kevlin was winning his class battle, but only just. And Robinson was on a charge. So too was Tony Dron. Robertson made a dramatic bid for the lead and got it. And Dron made a dramatic bid to stay on the road and lost. so Robinson went on to win. In the Vauxhall Lotus at Donington, Kelvin Burt and Jason Elliott were not quite the best of friends. Elliott started it, but came off worst with a penalty. Nakin and Honeysett kept out of trouble and got away. Inouye and Rashidan ended up playing in the sand. Now Andrade outbraked Williams, and the Australian wasn't too happy with that. And up front, Lakin was having all the problems in the world, keeping Honeysett back. A fast-charging Kelvin Burt caught Warren Hughes, and then proved that even he couldn't do the impossible. So across the line, Lakin was the winner. By June, it was off to Bonnie, Scotland. Here, the Hondas were at play again, and this was the way they lined up, in spite of the blustery day. Andy Ackley, in determined form, headed everyone in practice, but Boone and Gibson weren't so far behind in the 62s. Then it was Byford, Donaldson and Addison.
Straight to the race action then. Ackley on pole position. On the outside of the front row there in number 4 is Boone, and Ackley gets a terrible start. Too much wheel spin, I suspect, and the man who's really moved in the pack there is Bill Gibson as they come down towards the first corner. Gibson is in front, Boone in second place, and then the rest of the pack filing in now. Getting very out of shape there is Andy Gill, and Gill spins in the middle of the pack. Mark Donaldson, another spinner, as is Joe Mayer, and Rick Shortle also involved in that. So Shortle, and Neil Mackenzie as well. Mackenzie not having a happy time in the CRX at all. Finally ends up pointing the right way, and he too will set off, but at the back of the pack also. Now back with the leaders. Bill Gibson in front. Second place there is Boone. Third place is Ray Byford. And then Ackley, I think, is in fourth. Now up towards the hairpin they come. Gibson in control, and with quite a handy lead actually at the end of the first lap. Trying to keep out the way of the puddles, and going straight on there is Ray Byford. Byford just stops before hitting the tyre wall. Byford straight on at the hairpin. Through goes Lisa Thackwell. Keep an eye out now for Rick Shortle. There's Shortle. And we go in car with him now as he accelerates up the hill towards the start-finish line. Shortle, you will recall, won the race at Donington Park, but he's got a lot of work to do here if he's going to repeat that performance. Now, Ackley is now challenging Boone on the inside there of Chris Boone. Ackley desperately wants to win another round of this series and get back into the championship lead. Russell Grady is well back in the pack at the moment. And here comes Ackley. Now, will he pull out and have a look on the inside, or will he wait till the hairpin? There's Grady in number 10. Roger Kay, the man that's following him, but what about this dice for second place? Now, here comes Ackley on the inside. That's a brave place to do it. Ray Byford got it all wrong there on the previous lap. Ackley, though, up to second. Here's Grady, still ahead of Kay. And up the hill they go once again to complete the second lap. So Ackley is the man who's really been moving. Boone doesn't like that too much, actually. Chris Boone would like that second place back off Andy Ackley. And Ackley may well take him with him as he chases after Bill Gibson. Ackley, though, has already pulled out around 6 cars' lengths on Boone. Grady now has lost that place to Kay, so Kay has moved up a slot, and we get another spinner there, almost joining the cameraman, Joe Mayer. Mayer also collects it back together, fortunately without too much damage to the car. And here's Andy Ackley once again, still in second place, and still trying to close that gap on Bill Gibson in front. In car now with Neil Mackenzie. Mackenzie with a lot of work to do. He had that spin on the first lap, and coming through there past Andy Gill and Lance Ellington makes up 2 places. Mackenzie showing that he's no fool with 4 wheels on his wagon. You can see the difficulty that he's having seeing, though, through the screen there. And more he keeps those wipers going, the more smeared it's going to get, I fear. Now, braking for the hairpin. And on the inside of him there is Gill. Gill getting sideways and everything else, trying to snatch that place back. But Mackenzie holds on to it. Now, so long as he can keep seeing where he's going, he should be all right. Here's Gibson, and here's Ackley. Ackley has not perhaps made quite the impression that we might have expected from him. So Bill Gibson still holds the lead, and a reasonably comfortable one at that at the moment. Let's take a look at a replay of the start, this from Rick Shortall's point of view. Now, just in front of him there is Andy Gill, Donaldson on the inside of Gill and Grady on the inside of him, and Donaldson ends up getting sandwiched. Gill is the one that gets pushed out wide, and Shortall takes evasive action, and he was very lucky actually to get away without damage to the car there. Rejoins the circuit. Now here's Kay, now on the tail of Bob Addison. So Roger Kay has been moving up well. He's got away from Russell Grady, and Grady, don't forget, is the championship leader. So if the positions remain as they are at the moment, with Ackley in second place, Grady will lose that series lead, which at the moment he holds on to by just 2 points. Now Kay looks to the left and the right. Can he find a way past Bob Addison? Well, not this time. Down through Duffer's Dip they go, and now into McIntyre's. And a dry line starting to appear now. The rain is easing off, but it's still bitterly cold. We've had weather reports to say that it's actually snowing just a few miles away from here. And Addison continues to hold off Roger Kay. In front of them there, Chris Boone. And Kay having a good race here at Knockhill. Now in towards the hairpin, Taylor's turn. Gibson and Ackley this time has closed a lot. That gap has come down a huge amount now between the first two, and Gibson will come under pressure from Andy Ackley very soon, I'm sure. Now in car with Andy Ackley, and you can see just how hazy everything is. Down through Duffer's Dip into McIntyre's. Ackley closing that gap all the time. Well, the man in front of him, the leader, Bill Gibson. Through the chicane there, and now up towards Clark's curve. The gap now down to less than a car's length. Now will Ackley have a look at his favourite overtaking place again? Coming into the hairpin. He's looking towards the outside. That won't be the place to do it, but I suspect he's just trying to fool Bill Gibson into defending the outside line, which is exactly what happens. Ackley charges up the inside and into the lead. So Andy Ackley in the lead of yet another Honda CRX race. Now it'll be interesting to see whether or not Gibson can stay with him. Gibson trying to fight back as they go down the straight there. But Ackley, you can see, leaves his braking that little bit later. And Gibson, I fear, will now have to settle for second. Ackley didn't go so well in the wet practice session this morning, but he really has got it all together now. Watch the difference in the braking points. You can see Gibson there braked for a moment, whereas Ackley didn't, and Gibson much longer on the brakes going into the chicane there. Now, a replay of the earlier incident where we saw Joe Mayer spinning. Goodness, that is enough to give the cameraman heart failure. Now, back with this dice, Bob Addison. Roger Kay has got past him. Grady, the man behind him. And look at this. Here comes Warren Briggs on the inside of Grady. So Grady goes back down another slot. Grady is really not enjoying the wet conditions here at Knockhill. And he's slipped back yet again. Over the line they go. And Warren Briggs really is a man on a charge. He's now on the inside of Addison, going into Duffer's, and through he goes. So Briggs moves up another slot there. All that has allowed Grady actually, I think, to get a little bit closer to Addison. And he might well be on terms with Addison within the next lap or so. Now, here they come up towards Clark's. Briggs still in front of Addison. Grady, you will recall, was leading the championship before the start of this round by just 2 points from Ackley. That won't continue. Let's take a look at a replay of an incident that happened a few moments ago to guess who? Neil Mackenzie. And Mackenzie there at Taylor's, the hairpin, getting it all wrong. Spinning round and just flouting the tyre barrier. He's already got it in first gear though and is setting off again. Now in car with Mackenzie now, getting very sideways in front of him there, I think was Joe Mayer. Mayer it is as they go round Clark's. And this is a real tigering drive from Mackenzie. If he hadn't had those couple of moments, I think he'd actually be right up with the leaders. Now into the braking area now for Taylor's, the hairpin, on the inside of Mayer there. And through he goes, leaves Mayer as though he was standing still. Quite how he manages to see through all of that, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if he is. Over the start-finish line he goes again though, underneath the bridge, down towards Duffer's Dip. So Mackenzie still in front of Joe Mayer. And the man he's trying to catch now is Phil Paget from Barnsley. Through McIntyre's. He really must be having quite a job seeing through there. Now up towards the chicane and closes there on Paget. Almost hits the back of him. He's so much quicker out of the chicane. Up towards Clark's and round he goes. And Mackenzie, an absolutely storming drive back up through the field after a couple of mistakes earlier on. Now, can he keep this sort of performance up? A few spots of rain falling again there on the windscreen of the car. Oh, and he's got it all wrong. And that is Mackenzie's race run. Going into Taylor's, he wants to get back in the race. But I have a feeling that the car has probably cried enough now. So Neil Mackenzie's race is over. A real tigering drive, but unfortunately 3 incidents. Now Chris Boone now coming under a lot of pressure from Roger Kay. Kay has been moving up steadily all the way through the race. And this now the dice for 3rd place. Boone leaves his braking very late there. Kay still manages to take a few yards off him under braking. Out of Taylor's they go. And along the start-finish straight once again. Chris Boone still in front of Kay. Boone with a lot of experience in the Hondas. He's been competing in the championship for 4 years now. Kay, on the other hand, is in his first ever wet race. And a fine performance it is too. This the dice then for 3rd place. Up towards the chicane they go. Kay all the time looking for an opportunity. I think he was hoping that he'd be slightly quicker out of the chicane there and be able to pull alongside on the run up towards Clark's. Bit of damage on the front of Boone's car, which has been there pretty much since the start of the race. Warren Briggs not that far behind them. And that's Lisa Thackwell pulling off to retire. Lisa has had quite a good race, so that's a shame. Lisa pulls off to retire. Here's Briggs. He's chasing Farmer Kay in front of him. But the 23 years old farmer still looking for a way past Chris Boone. Now this could be his chance coming up towards Duffers this time. Will he switch to the inside? He's so close to the back of Boone's car there. He's almost touching it and Boone spins in front of him. Kay just about managing to avoid him, as does Briggs. Boone sets off again, having lost 2 places and very annoyed with himself too, I should think. Now let's take a look at what happened to Neil Mackenzie from the outside. There's plenty of lock on there, but it's just not going anywhere. And it's not surprising that he didn't continue after that sort of impact. The little CRX well and truly buried in the tyre wall there. Now here comes Andy Ackley. Commanding lead now, and Ackley really stroking his way home to victory. Still has to find his way past a few of the back markers. Mark Donaldson will be the first of those. But Ackley's been sitting behind him for quite a while now, and I wonder whether or not he might just be pacing himself at this stage of the race. Here's an earlier incident that happened, and this might explain why Lisa Thackwell retired, because she tangled there with Bob Addison and might well have suffered some sort of damage or maybe a puncture as a result of that. Now Paget in front of Byford, Donaldson, and then Ackley. Ackley still sitting behind this dice. The final lap now for Andy Ackley. So less than a lap to go around Knock Hill before he takes another victory this season. And in front of him there, spinning, is Ray Byford. Ackley manages to miss him. I think Byford might have a bit of trouble getting the car back on the road from that position. But a worrying moment there for Andy Ackley. Still sitting in behind Mark Donaldson now. And really just the hairpin to negotiate now. Ackley, plenty of space between himself and Bill Gibson in second place. Comes up to the hairpin for the final time. Closes right up on Donaldson there, just to remind him how much quicker he is, I think, especially in these conditions. And it's true to say that he really has been the master today. This Ackley's fourth year in the challenge as he takes the checkered flag. Second in last year's championship, and he would dearly love to win it this year, and that win may well help him on his way to the title. Bill Gibson in second place from a fine drive there from Roger Kay in third place. Briggs in fourth. Chris Boone and Russell Grady round out the top six.
The Vauxhall Juniors made the trip to Ireland on Mondello Park, and Dario Franchetti was the man to watch, within Freddie Van Buren and Kevin McGarity on his home ground. McGarity went to the inside and came out ahead. And soon David Cuff was looking for third place. And he got it. Franchetti didn't last much longer. But Cuff had the bit between his teeth and chased the Irishman. Alessandrini passed Van Buren, but McGarity just hung on to take the win from Cuff. When the clears came to Silverstone, Wardby finished before it started. And while Mike Mills was doing the business holding Kay at bay, DeZille frightened everybody, and himself. While Mills, Kay and Ackley battled for the lead, Jones and Hopkins had a very exciting moment. And then Hayden Measham had a real good go at Ackley and got through. Hillier had a big moment in the middle of the pack again. And Anthony Pownell got involved with Edgar, and that was that. Mills, however, went on to take an easy win. It rained on the Porsches, and Robinson got a good start from Dron and Hyatt. By Beckett's, Robinson looked more or less secure. And still was hanging on back at Woodcote. Then Hyatt threw it all away. And John found the wet to his liking. In these conditions, the experience of Robbie Sterling began to tell, and he moved up. Soon, he snatched second place. While Hyatt had a struggle to get back through the traffic. Keith Norman had his moment. And then Robinson had a crack back again at Robbie Sterling. Ross Hyatt still having problems with the traffic and the slippery road. And then the last-minute dash to the line. And surprise, surprise, it's Robinson who gets it. The modified class and Greasley's beautiful 935. For once, not out-accelerating the pack. While Gideon Hudson still has the advantage at the end of lap 1. Val Lindsay and Ross Hyatt battled it out in Class D here. And Hudson still holding off back Roberts and also the threat of Greasley. Eric Hendrickson. Understeer, oversteer, and facing the traffic. Now Greasley starts to put the pressure on. And Holland moves up as well. Greasley snatches the lead. And now John gets excited. Gideon Hudson contacts Seagrew, who goes out of the race. And Holland pulls out all on his own. Greasley comes up to take the checkered flag, with behind Lindsay going hard and looking set to pass Robinson. But then spinning his chance away, allowing Tron through for second in the class. By July, halfway through the season, the Mobile Honda CRX Challenge had settled down, with Ackley on a 5-point lead from Russell Brady. Gibson and Shortle close behind, and Ackley determined to finish the season off as he started it here, taking the lead at Donington. Addison and Mayer closing in behind. And Gibson moving up fast here to snatch a place. Mayer the victim. All that was too much for Joe Mayer. He got it off the cam and got it out of the places. By now a bit tired, Budding and Gill leant on each other. But Ackley needed to lean on no one and came up to take the checkered flag and extend his lead in the championship. In the Clio Cup, Mike Mills had 10 points on Wardby, who'd started the season well. But Fish and Hayden Measham were sharing 4th place. Wardby made a good start, and Mills slotted in behind him. And Steve Jones found that his Donington luck was no better this time than last. For Wardby, life was getting a bit complicated. A lot of pressure. And Fish got caught, and into his place went Sailor. Edgar gritted his teeth at McLean's. While Wardby got a bit of help. All this allowed it to become a three-car battle, as up came Fish. And all that was too much for Wardby, who spent the rest of the race trying to get back onto the track. Eventually, Mills came up to take the checkered flag and thoroughly deserved it. Beasley again in the Porsche Modifieds at Donington, this time taking a firm lead. A view from the back of the car, and it's all happening. Indeed, it's all too much for Holland, who's given it all up and decided to have a smoke. Eric Hendrickson on a fair charge. But it was Beasley all the way to the line, and this is how we saw it from the back of the car. In August, Formula Vauxhall Lotus was 11 rounds old, and Warren Hughes looked as if he might have it in the bag. But Burt wasn't all that far behind, and neither was Piers Honeysett. Up to Scotland and Ingliston, the place perhaps to sort it all out. And after practice, there had been a sort out too. Scott Lakin, the man to watch at the top of the tree, and Warren Hughes down there in 5th place, giving himself a fair amount of work to do.
And what better way to watch Hughes than from on board the race car? Waiting now for the lights to change from red to green. Hughes starting from 5th on the grid, don't forget. Ahead of him there, Scott Lakin gets a terrible start. Kelvin Burt it is that leads as Hughes there on the grass for a moment. Now through the S's, and it tucked in tight there behind Piers Honeysett. Burt, Lakin, Honeysett, and then Warren Hughes just ahead of Yasutaka Hinoi, the Japanese driver. Hughes got the jump on at the start. Now Hughes looking for a way past Honeysett, dives to the inside there and locks up a brake and touches Honeysett. He's lost some momentum there, and the Japanese driver Hinoi comes past him. Or does he? Yes, he does just. And Hughes goes from almost being in 3rd place back to 5th in the space of just a couple of 100 yards. I wonder whether or not that touch with Piers Honeysett will have altered the handling of that car at all. Here come the leaders, Kelvin Burt, Scott Lakin, already with a gap now over Piers Honeysett, then Hinoi, then Hughes, with a lot of work to do now. And 2 men out there, Mark Ullman and Daniel Aldanucci. An incident for those two then on the first lap, and their race is run. Now, what can Hughes do about Yasutaka Hinoi as they accelerate away from the hairpin there? Close moments going on up and down the field, and an incident at the back of the field there. Sees Mark Cole spinning out, somebody else making their way across the grass. Back with the leaders now. Kelvin Burt very much in charge. Now with about 4 cars length over Scott Lakin. And Lakin using all the road through the S's there, as is Kelvin Burt. These two very evenly matched indeed. Through goes Warren Hughes there, in behind Yasutaka Hinoi. And down to the hairpin come the leaders. Just a tenth of a second between them in practice, and I would suspect even less than that in the race. And really nowhere that Lakin can find a significant advantage to take ground out of Kelvin Burt. And the same thing would seem to apply to Piers Honeysett in third place. These three pretty much equidistantly spaced now. Honeysett really does need to finish ahead of Burt to keep his title hopes alive. Burt needs a win. And if he wins here, it'll be his 6th of the season. And that despite not even competing in the first round. Through the arena once again, Kelvin Burt in charge. Lakin in second place, then Honeysett. Now Warren Hughes has dropped back from Hinoi, so Hinoi in 4th, Hughes back in 5th. I don't think there's very much he can do about the Japanese driver in front of him. It may well be that he did indeed damage that car in that incident with Piers Honeysett on the first lap. Through go the first three once again, round the hairpin. Here comes Hinoi, then Hughes. Next man up there is 15, Nicky Hart, just ahead of 5, Alexander Andrade. Now back with the leader again. Kelvin Burt comes into the arena. Right on the ragged edge there, puts a wheel on the dirt and almost lost it. Burt really is trying very, very hard to extend that gap over Scott Lakin. Not allow Lakin to get close enough to challenge him. Warren Hughes trying one or two of the same tricks there as he goes through the arena, and there really is not a lot of room for error here at Ingolstadt. Now here's Michael Edgar. Behind him there, Jeremy Cottrell. Those two have had some tremendous dices this year. Next man up, Mark Williamson, the Australian here, carrying another of the onboard cameras. And the Prosperity Diamond Racing team has a number of the members of the old Dragon Motorsport team, which were champions with Alan McNish and Mika Hakkinen a few years ago in Vauxhall Lotus and the Euro Series. Hakkinen, of course, now driving for Lotus in Formula One. And here is Williamson, just ahead there of David Lloyd, 23-year-old computer systems designer. The pit boards hung out as the race continues, and Cottrell now starts to apply some pressure to Edgar. Dice is going on up and down the field, the leading position staying pretty much the same, but Cottrell now trying to make a move on the inside of Edgar and goes through. Neat move there by Jeremy Cottrell then, moves him up to 8th place, ahead of Edgar in 9th. Alexander Andrade and Nicky Hart, the men ahead of them, as Kelvin Burt comes through, then Lakin. A little bit of a gap before we see Piers Honeysett. Honeysett charges through the S's there. 3rd place, there's 2nd place man Lakin. And here's the leader. Kelvin Burt really hasn't made that much distance on Scott Lakin, just enough to be fairly comfortable there. 36 laps long this race. So there's still time for Lakin to do something about the flying Kelvin Burt in front of him, but it really doesn't look as though it's going to be possible. Now here comes Warren Hughes, just ahead of Nicky Hart and Alexander Andrade. And a bit of lappery to deal with. The man in question, Matt Aitken. Perhaps more famous for his songwriting abilities than his race driving, but nonetheless, Aitken putting up a very creditable performance. There goes 4th place man Yasutaka Hinoi through the S's. As Kelvin Burt now comes up for the final time. just ahead of Scott Lakin. Lakin has closed that gap on this last lap. Now can Warren Hughes hang on to fifth ahead of Nicky Hart and Alexander Andrade? Round the hairpin they go. Here comes Kelvin Burt to take the checkered flag. Burt wins then from Lakin and Honeysett in third place. And that is Kelvin Burt's sixth win of the season in Formula Vauxhall Lotus. The 23-year-old absolutely delighted with that. John Village prepared car. Immaculate. And another win then for Kelvin Burt. Confirmation there, Scott Lakin in second place. Third place to Honeysett. Fourth goes to Yasutaka Hinoi. Fifth to Warren Hughes. And sixth to Nicky Hart.
Though McGarity led the championship, in Formula Vauxhall Junior, it was Cuff who made the best start. Van Buren and Franchetti close behind are trying hard. And McGarity not having too easy a time of it. Chris Longmore found himself bumped off. And there was quite a dice for third place. Alessandrini and De Souza tried the back-to-back approach. Van Buren put Cuff under pressure, while Scott Franchetti did the same to Irishman McGarity. McGarity's steering wasn't what it was. And it got worse. Van Buren, however, was a man never to give up here. He pressured all the way. In the end, Cuff perhaps relaxed a bit too much. In spite of an assault from the rear, on went Van Buren to take victory in Scotland. The Clios, meanwhile, were at Mallory Park. Steve Wardby made a good start from Fish, but Mills was well back. Jonathan Salem watches Andy Ackley cut the grass. While Wardby tried a shortcut. Mills and Kay had fun at the hairpin. The field sorted itself out. And then Hagen spun. Mills said about Jones as he moved up the field. And Jones lost out. And Mark spun in front of DeZille. All this was too much for poor old Jones, who spun in sympathy. Fish decided to try the Wardby line, and it seemed to work. He was a bit closer. Mills was giving it everything, perhaps a bit too much. So Wardby, concentrating hard, went on to win as he came out of the Devil's Elbow. At this stage of the season, Jason Plato had a considerable advantage in the Formula Renault Championship. Bobby Verdon-Rowe a good second, and Chris Goodwin a bad third. Round 7 at Mallory Park was to have quite an impression. Not the least because Verdon-Rowe got a good start this time. And Plato wasn't finding things as easy. Tommy Antolainen was going well and making life difficult for Plato, with Finn Murray in second place. For Murray was like Christmas. They were all leaving him alone. More than could be said for Pedro Martinez de la Rosa, Ringo Hein, Adrian Cottrell and Ivan Arias. By now, Verden Rowe was having a splendid time, and Murray was locking wheels in an effort to catch him. And Arias had his hands full with Cottrell. Antolainen was still keeping Plato behind him. And Plato didn't like it much. While Verden Rowe went on towards victory, Antolainen went in towards a tree. By now, Ringo Hein was in a huge battle with Pedro Martinez de la Rosa. By the time they got to the hairpin, Antolainen had come down from his perch and the yellow flags were in, which was just what Ivan Arias was waiting for, snatching a place on the inside of the Devil's Elbow. So now Cottrell joined the foreign invasion. Among the back markers, first and second men were still having a few problems, but they were the only problems they were having. Hein had made a place back again, and Cottrell was left to reflect on another day. Bobby Verden Rowe, however, came down to take the checkered flag and his first win of the season. And that was to see a big change as the races wore on. By Donington Park, Verden Rowe was really on a hard charge, and Antolainen got bullied out of a good start. The pace was fast and furious up at the front, and Antolainen was anxious to get up to third. He made it at the end of the straight. Oliver Gavin was pressing Finn Murray. At Redgate, he passed him. And Andy Sim ran into him. At the front, it was still anybody's race. Further back, Andy Sim was out of it as a result of that incident. The leaders were getting a bit harsh with each other. While Robert Foote was out of the hunt as well, more interested in the grass and Andy Sim's car. Valour was proving stronger than common sense, and Pedro Martinez de la Rosa and Cottrell were all over the curbs. There was a three-way battle up front until Antolainen's rear suspension collapsed. And now driver discipline broke down at the front of the field. No comment. But they behaved themselves in front of the clerk of the course at least. Bate left in a huff, and it was all getting out of hand. On this one, I stand on the Fifth Amendment. But with Plato's gearbox broken, Bobby Verdon-Roe snatches victory. And behind, a similar struggle for Cottrell and De La Rosa. Kevin McGarity holding the lead on round 9 at Donington Park in the Vauxhall Juniors, and Dario Franchetti right behind him. Problem is, they're both off the road, and somehow they get missed by all the traffic. And that meant that Freddie Van Buren had an extensive lead as they came down for the first time. Behind, Kane and Guzman fight it out for second and third places. And up comes Guerrero. By Redgate, Justin Keen's up with them as well. And by the hairpin, he isn't. Meanwhile, Guzman tries conclusions with Guerrero and comes off worst. Jonathan Kane now was after Van Buren. And bullied his way to the front. A restrained David Cuff was up to 5th. Jules Gilson was proving to be a glittering star, closing the gap on Van Buren. But Guerrero loves this spot and proved it again by passing both of them. Gonzalo Mejia goes for a picnic in the coppice. The battle for second, third and fourth was still raging. Gilson gets sideways and gets caught by Cuff. Then the red flag came out for an incident which involved Sasha Pearl. The restart, and once again it's a good start by Van Buren. Jonathan Kane, Jules Gilson, Guerrero and Cuff well up. But McGarity gets it all wrong here and ends up in the sand. He just about gets out. David Cuff is moving up rapidly into 5th place. As he goes up, Guy Farrant goes down, spinning and everybody missing it. The battle up at the front just as hot as ever. At Redgate, Jules Gilson snatches the lead. And now Kane is looking for second. And finding it. And while Kane tries to keep Van Buren for second place, the man to profit, Guerrero, who snatches it off both of them. And after all this hard work, at Coppice, he throws it wide, and through again go the two of them. Van Buren and Kane are still fighting it out for second place. while Franchetti is having a miserable time. Well down today. McGarity finally departs from the race, and Guerrero snatches back second, only to lose it again. Peter Bell's chimes stop, while David Cuff has made a magnificent recovery and is right up with that battle at the front. No doubt about Gilson, however, everything under control. It's the battle for second place where it's all happening. The last lap, the last corner, and it's Kane into second place. Gilson goes on to win, while Longmore and Keane fall over each other. And on aggregate, Kane takes the victory. By September, that Greasley Porsche is well away again. But Valentine Lindsay is about to scare Eric Hendrickson half to death. Somehow they miss each other, and up to second place comes Holland. Mortimer, Gideon Hudson and McRoberts well up, with Hendrickson too very much in the hunt, making a few risky moves here. McRoberts now making a huge effort to move up at Copse, and succeeding. While the Class C lead passes to Watson. It's a huge lead for Greasley. And it's a huge chance by Henriksen, diving for the inside. Greasley goes on to win yet another victory. Renault's at Donington for round 10, and a fine start from Kay. Wardby back in fourth place has given himself some driving work to do. Simon Fish and Jonathan Salem had given their teams something to do with the cars. Wardby now getting on with that job and looking for the space that wasn't there. Wardby now leaving a bit more space than perhaps he should have done. Up comes Measham. And next, about to duck in and look at the inside, it's Fish. Two more places down in one easy lesson. Ahead of Wardby, Mills takes the lead, as Wardby finds himself down in sixth spot. Measham and Fish continue to battle it out. And here's a driver's eye view of the efforts as Fish locks up. By now, Graham DeZille is close to Wardby. Problem is, too close. Mills now with a commanding lead. And Wardby like a fox at bay. Everybody chasing him. Hayden Measham locks up and goes off. While Steve Davis has a fair battle on his hands. Allen and Jones clash cars. But with a tremendous lead, Mills well on his way towards the flag as the battle goes on for second place between Kay, Johnson and Fish. And Mills comes up to take the flag. Vauxhall Lotus Championship leader Mark Hughes breaks a half shaft at the start. And straight into the lead goes Kelvin Burke. Honeysett tries to stay with him, so does Scott Lakin and the Japanese Henoi. But that broken drive shaft means Hughes is a spectator for the day. Lakin here being pressed by the Japanese. Johnny Molan well up, fighting it out with Cottrell. While Albon and Gavin fall out and are out. A huge lead for Burke. As Honeysett, Lakin and Henoi struggle to stay with him. But their chance comes when the engine cuts. But fortunately, restarts again. Clubman's veteran Vernon Davis spins out. While Cole and Hepworth collide. The best dies here is Cottrell and Hart fighting it out for sixth. And Kelvin Burke goes on to win, apparently quite easily, with Cottrell snatching at sixth place on the last lap. Round 9 of the Mobile CRX Challenge sees a good start for Andy Ackerley. But a problem for Joe Mayer as they come into Copse Corner. Some time to make up and a tight pack for the lead. Ackerley and Shortall, very much the pair to watch. And here Gill, out of the hunt and onto the grass. The fight for championship position very much on between Gibson and Grady. And life doesn't get any better for Lisa Thackwell. In the battle for second place, it's still very much a two-man fight, Shortall and Briggs. Behind, Grady and Gibson battle for all their worth. And Gibson's chances and his points take a dive here. Eckel is your man, and is the name. The Porsches at Donington for round 9 of the Frank Shorter Super Cup. And the championship positions look like this. Robinson with a narrow lead in Class A, and Warnock with a bigger one in Class B. In practice, however, it's been quite a close dice, and as far as times are concerned, this is how they worked out. Pole position goes to Bob Berridge. Craig Simmis just about half a second behind, and Brian Robinson a full second off the pole. Tony Dron next up, David Warnock and Ian Lawton.
Lights are red, and as they flash to green, super view from the rear of the grid here at Donington Park, and we can see Tony Dron making a cracking start. We go in car with Brian Robinson in 4th or 5th place or so as we go up to Redgate for the first time. That's Ian Lawton to our left. We certainly get past him. Tony Dron directly ahead of us. Now that's the wrong way round if your name's Brian Robinson, but it's the right way round if your name's Tony Dron. Downhill through the Craner curves. Very quick part of the track. Race leader though into the old hairpin for the first time is Craig Simmis from the outside of the front row. Berridge in second place, then Dron and Robinson. We go in car with Tony Dron. Following pole position man Bob Berridge. Berridge takes the lead round the inside at McLean's. Craig Simmis tries to fight back. Why is Craig Simmis indicating to the left? I assume he's merely knocked the indicator stalk. Brakes for Coppice. This looks as though it's going to be an absolutely cracking climax to the Frank Shorter Castrol Porsche Super Cup Series in 1991. Back in car with Brian Robinson under the Dunlop Bridge, keeping Tony Dron directly ahead of us and keeping in touch with him. Dron brakes, we brake down through the gearbox. Remember, this is the Grand Prix circuit, so we go left and right through the S's. Onto the half-mile Grand Prix loop. Makes a total of 2.5 miles of the Grand Prix track here. Tom Segru there, number 27, we've just got a glimpse of at the tail end of the field. Through the Melbourne hairpin. Oh dear, you see just how hard Tony has to work to make sure that his rear engine 911's keeping the right sort of line. There, number 4 is Brian Robinson, the man we need to be watching very carefully, certainly in context of where he is in comparison with Tony Dron. He's still tucked right in behind him. That was Ian Lawton, number 11 behind. This is the battle, though. Front engine 944, rear engine 911, and Craig Simmis in the second of those two cars, not letting up one jot, giving Bob Berridge an immense amount of pressure. 55 there, David Warnock, the leader of Class B in this championship. As we go in car for the first time with Barry Williams, you can tell which one he is. He's the one who's written his girlfriend's name on the dashboard. Hope she's not his sponsor as well. We're using rather a lot of road there, Barry. It's meant to stay on the black bit in the middle. Barry started from the back of the grid, not a regular in this championship, driving Mike Burt's car as a one-off in this final round. Remember, Barry, we saw throughout the series last year. Those of you who watched the coverage last year will remember him sitting in the gravel traps at Zandvoort quite a lot. Well, Barry is going to have to carve his way through a lot of cars if he's going to get anywhere near into contention for a race win here. And you see the traffic directly ahead of him. Some of the Class B cars there. It's Vic Ferguson's directly ahead of him. The man who's currently lying second in Class B. Barry's got a real job to do. Through the right-hander at Coppice they go. There, number 6 is Barry Williams in the yellow and white 911. We get past Vic Ferguson, then we are now braking for the S's. Did we get past Vic Ferguson? I said that rather confident. Yes, we did, in fact, and we indeed pick up. Well, we didn't, in fact, because Vic Ferguson fights back, and just about holds on to that place. Let's just see whether Barry Williams, as he's got the tighter inside line, is going to be able to finally pick up the place from Vic Ferguson, who he waves at. Actually, it wasn't so much a wave, more a sort of finger wag. Barry gets the Melbourne hairpin wrong, but recovers, and there's a spinner in front of him. Looked there, I think that was number 1, which was last year's champion Keith Norman. So there's a lot of fraught action here in the Super Cup at Donington Park once again. There's Barry Wizzo Williams in the Mike Burt car. We're back in car with Barry along the pit straight, crowded pit wall, indeed a crowded Donington Park. Ross Hyatt there, just ahead of 26, which is Serge Davis. Vic Ferguson next up, then Barry Williams. So Barry's got to find his way back past Vic Ferguson. He's overtaken him once, he's behind him once again. Coming down through the Craner curves. Classic battle of the Porsches, this. Front engine, rear wheel drive, as against rear engine, rear wheel drive. Barry, you can see, fighting for grip and control in the 911 on the slippery curves of the old hairpin there. Through the nameless left-hander up towards McLean's. Barry a little bit sideways again. You can always rely on Barry Williams, whatever position he holds in a race, to be one of the most entertaining races in British national racing to watch. Always gives the crowd something to cheer, and certainly he's providing that sort of entertainment here at Donington today. Back to the leading pair, the front row of the grid men, Bob Berridge, and there number 10, Craig Simmis. Simmis still putting Berridge under the pressure he has been since the start of this race. There can't be more than a length in it as they come past the pits up towards Redgate once again. You can see Bob Berridge looking in his mirror. Craig Simmis has a look at the inside, a little bit of flame out there, right on his tail. They both rise slightly onto the curbing on the exit of Redgate. Back in car with Barry Williams, still trying to find a way past Vic Ferguson. Looks at the inside at the Melbourne hairpin there, doesn't quite have the best line out of the corner, so he's still behind Vic Ferguson. Serge Davis into ahead of him, Ross Hyatt leading this quartet. Vic Ferguson looks at the inside of Serge Davis. Can he nose the 944 alongside? No, he can't. Ducks and dives. This time Barry Williams pulls out. A little bit more impetus out of Goddard this time. Barry is certainly nosing alongside Vic Ferguson as they come up towards Redgate. This time Ferguson pulls over to go for the wider line in and the tighter line out. Is he going to be able to do it? Yes, he does. Vic Ferguson, by very shrewd use of the track there, gets ahead of Serge Davis, but Barry Williams gets past both of them in a masterly manoeuvre. Approaching the S's once again then, Bob Berridge in 944, number 7 into the S's. Still managing to hold off the pressure that the New Zealander Craig Simmis is putting him under. Craig, of course, with some experience in Formula 3 as well as in Porsches. Back in car with Tony Dron. A locked wheel ahead of us, that's Bob Berridge. Tony Dron then giving us a superb mobile grandstand view of the lead battle in this final Frank Shorter Castrol Super Cup race of the year. Uphill towards Goddard. Tony just keeping the beautiful flame out there from the Craig Simmis car, giving us a superb view and keeping just at the right level, just at the right distance from the leaders. A pointed spectator's finger normally means something worth looking at, and in this instance it's a spin from 60 there. That's Trevor Lewis on the inside of Copse, but he continues, not continuing however, and they're just pulling up his electric cutout. There is number 15, Jamie Maserati. Back in car, Barry Williams, this time pulling alongside Ross Hyatt under braking for the Melbourne hairpin. And through Barry goes, I think. Just having a quick glance in the rearview mirror. Barry, a quick wave to Ross Hyatt saying thanks for that. A no contact overtaking manoeuvre for Barry Williams, moves him one further place up in his climb, right up from the tail end of the grid, but it doesn't, because Ross Hyatt fought back and managed to retake the place. But Williams, now we've seen Williams very quick along the pit straight, and he had the inside line last time he managed to take a place. This time he hasn't, but is he going to duck down the inside at Redgate? Yes, he does. And will he take the place? Ross Hyatt fights back, absolutely side by side. These two go through the right-hander at Redgate at the top of the Craner curves. But Williams it is who takes the advantage as they go through the right-hander, then the left-hander down towards the old hairpin. Doesn't look much like a hairpin from an in-car camera, but if you're driving the car, believe me, it is. Williams then finds his way past Hyatt as we go back to the right-hander at Redgate. And see there 27, which is Tom Segru, started on the back row of the grid. And I don't think he's going to go any further. No, That 944 is digging in. Back with the lead battle, which is still raging on all the corners of the Donington Park circuit. You can see the pressure that Craig Simmis is putting the race leader Bob Berridge under. Bob a little bit side of Bob, blocks a break. Is that Craig Simmis' chance on the inside at Coppice? No, it isn't. There's absolutely nothing in it between these two. Bob Berridge, a very accomplished Porsche driver, into Craig Simmis, not quite so experienced as Bob in Porsches, but Bob really pushing hard here. Craig Simmis has given Berridge absolutely no chance to relax at any stage in this race. So there was a slight bit of contact there as they came out of the S's, but Berridge it is who still leads. And this time, as they come down towards the Melbourne hairpin, Berridge is on the inside. Craig Simmis with two wheels on the grass is on the outside. Is he going to be able to take the lead as they come through the Melbourne hairpin? He noses the 911 alongside. No, he doesn't. So Berridge it is who still leads. Uphill out of the Melbourne hairpin, and alongside comes Craig Simmis and through. Craig Simmis then goes through into the lead in car number 10. The 911 locks the wheel on the way into Goddard for the final time. And what has happened to Berridge? There's a drama there for Berridge. The nose of the car keeps dipping. I wonder if he's having trouble finding some gears. I don't know what's happened, but very disappointing on the penultimate lap of this race for Bob Berridge, after such a mighty drive, to have to hand the lead and what now looks as though it's certainly going to be a race winner. There you just see Berridge's car on the right as we go back in car with Tony Dron. Dron, if he keeps it all on the island for another 2.5 miles or so, therefore will finish in second place. David Warnock there in number 55 has led the second class, Class B, virtually throughout this final Frank Shorter round, and I think that's going to give us a fairly interesting points position, but we'll work that out in a moment or two. There's Brian Robinson as well. He's going to finish behind Tony Dron, which is not quite what he wanted to get out of today. He really needed the win to clinch the class. Craig Simmis then, the New Zealander, emerges from the left-hander at Goddard and takes the checkered flag as the winner of the last Frank Shorter Castrol Porsche Super Cup race of 1991. Bob Berridge will indeed be a very disappointed man as Craig Simmis acknowledges the cheers of the marshals and the crowd there. Confirmation of the results: Simmis the winner, Tony Dron and Brian Robinson finishing second and third, David Warnock fourth and the Class B winner, with Barry Williams having fought up to fifth and Ross Hyatt finishing in sixth place.
A change of circuit, a change of car. It's Knock Hill and round 11 of the Renault Clio Elf UK Cup. The grid a close one, with Mark Fish just ahead of Wardby. Mills not so far behind. Hayden Measham, Simon Fish and Jonathan Salem all in the 1.5s and all very much on the pace.
The lights are red on the bridge, and as they flash to green, an instantly good start there from Mike Mills, and as they come up to the first corner, well, they'll be charging into Duffers Dip. Mark Fisher, number 20, looks as though he's going to hold the lead as they go into that first corner. Tucked right in behind him there is Hayden Measham, in fact, in second place. Down the hill through Duffers Dip they go. As you can see, the drivers have been commenting on how narrow this circuit is, and it is indeed, even if you're in a relatively small car like a Clio. Through the chicane, which has some large vehicle tyres on. Then there's a spinner already, 24. That's David Kay, and he bounces off into the tyre wall, but it looks as though he's going to be able to rejoin. Through Clarks they go, with Mark Fish, the man from pole position, still holding the advantage. And off there goes number 5. That's Tony Pownall at Clarks, on the outside of Clarks there. Just look how close this Clio race is going to be. This is the hairpin, a very tight corner indeed, and it's uphill out of the hairpin, so it's a tough uphill run before they pass the pits once again. Mark Fish then it is who leads. Hayden Measham there in second place, tucked in behind him in third is Steve Wardby. Is Wardby challenging at Duffers Dip? No, he isn't. Mike Mills is in fourth place at the moment, so as we are currently, as we go in car with Simon Fish, lying currently in fifth place and watching the two guys directly ahead. First car ahead is Mike Mills, the one in front of him is Steve Wardby. Those are the two guys jointly leading the championship. We bounce across the two curves, or the two elements of the chicane, coming along Butcher's Straight now in fifth place through the right-hander at Clarks. This is a corner, and as you see, just as I was about to say, a corner that's caught a lot of drivers out in testing and practice. A load of mud splattered up there on the screen of Simon Fish's car. Think we picked up a place by passing Mike Mills, but no, he glances to the left. That means Mills is coming alongside him, but no, we're on the inside as we break for the chicane. So up into fourth place goes Simon Fish. Mike Mills demoted to fifth, but Mills pulling alongside Simon Fish again as they come up the hill. We're back in car with Simon coming along past the pits. You catch a glimpse of them there on the left. Mills, obviously with a bit more grunt in a straight line and uphill, retakes his 4th place. And there he is. We see it from the outside and you see the mud splattered all over the front of Simon Fish's car. Down through Duffer's Dip, through the right-hander at McIntyre's. Then the swooping little dip there up towards the chicane. You can see those big tractor tyres that were put there. That was as a result of the Clio's having done a fair bit of curb cutting during their testing during the week, and the BARC clerk of the course, Dennis Carter, thought it wasn't a good wheeze, so put in the tyres to prevent them doing it. Coming past the little cut through there, that's used sometimes when this circuit is used, would you believe, in the opposite direction. Challenge for 2nd place, and very neatly done there it was too. Steve Wardby eases past Hayden Measham up into 2nd place. That puts 1 car between himself and Mike Mills, and that's exactly the sort of thing Steve Wardby will want to do. Remember, they're tied on points, so whoever finishes ahead in this race will automatically move into the championship lead. Mark Fish from pole position still leads. Wardby is 2nd, Hayden Measham is 3rd, Mike Mills is 4th. Down through Duffer's Dip they do, the clip of the curb there. Simon Fish still in 5th place, and Mike Mills also finds a way past Hayden Measham. In fact, if anything, I'd say Measham might have missed a gear there, because Mills, he's passed him so quickly. We're back in car with Simon Fish now following Hayden Measham. Measham is 4th, we are 5th. So Wardby and Mike Mills, the battling championship leaders, are now 2nd and 3rd. Rather tidier line through Clark's this time. Approaching the breaking point for the chicane, and Steve Wardby's all over the tail end of Mark Fish. Wardby gets his nose alongside as they come uphill. Fish runs very wide onto the curbing now. Can't really tell from this perspective, is Steve Wardby going to be able to challenge as they go along the straight past the pits? Looks to me as though he's going to be able to as they approach the bridge. Coming along the pit straight, yes, he's side by side with him, and indeed so is Mike Mills. Is Mills going to go through to 2nd place too? Yes, he is. Oh, Steve Wardby up onto 2 wheels through the right hander at the end of the pit straight. So Steve Wardby takes the lead. Mike Mills goes through into 2nd place, and in the space of just a few yards, Mark Fish slips from 1st to 3rd. Hayden Measham tucked right in behind him. Measham now part of a sort of Fish sandwich, with Mark and Simon in front and behind him respectively. Coming along Butcher straight there, and Hayden Measham now looking to left and looking to right of Mark Fish, trying to get past him as they approach Clark's. Doesn't achieve that yet, but he's absolutely poised, ready to make a move. Coming up towards the very, very tight hairpin now. Mike Mills looks to the outside line. He can't drive all the way around the outside of Steve Wardby, surely, but he might get a tighter line out of the corner. And there Simon Fish goes past Hayden Measham, or does he? Yes. Well, I don't know. It looks to me as though he's going to, so we're going to have the 2 Fish brothers in 3rd and 4th places, but Hayden Measham is fighting back as they come along the straight up to go past the pits. Yes, but Simon's got the tighter line. He's on the inside line as they come down to the right-hander. I think he's going to get 4th. Yes, he does. So Hayden Measham then demoted to 5th place. Mike Mills pulls alongside race leader Steve Wardby there. Can't find a way past yet. So it's Wardby, Mike Mills, Mark Fish, now Simon Fish, then Hayden Measham. We're back in car with Simon Fish, swooping through the chicane, running very wide on the exit. That's going to cost us time. I think we're going to hit the tyre wall. No, we're not. But that really has done us a power of no good. Passed by Hayden Measham and at least 1 other car there as we regain the track. And just look at what a mess we have made of our motor car. So then there, just a glimpse of 91, Derek Butcher, single-seater racer, normally having a go in the car. Also the man who runs Knock Hill, but not having a very good time of it, being passed there by Tony Pownell. Derek, unfortunately, having been off twice already in testing. You'd have thought his local circuit knowledge might have held him in slightly better stead. Battle there between the right at the tail end of the field there, Gary Winterden in 79, Richard Simpkins in 23, in the 2 very dark Clios there. Oh, a little bit of contact there between those 2 as well, all of which is to the benefit of Simpkins, who now ends up at the head of that 2-car battle. Back in car with the increasingly muddy Simon Fish. Along the straight, Wardby it is who still leads, then Mike Mills there in 2nd place. Bit of a trio really now battling for the lead. Mark Fish is still there with them. But Wardby beginning, if anything, to pull out a little bit of an advantage. It looks like 3, perhaps 4 lengths or so, which is more than anybody has really had so far in this race. And with such close proximity of the cars directly behind Mike Mills. Particularly you can see Mark Fish there ducking and diving, trying to find a way past. All of that's going to be a bit good for Steve Wardby, which is going to give him a chance to concentrate a little bit on getting the right lines, which might enable him to pull away as Hayden Measham pulls alongside Mark Fish, brakes on the outside of the chicane of the hairpin there, drives all the way around the outside, knocks his rear wiper, side by side onto the straight they go. This is very, very good Renault Clio racing indeed. I wouldn't like to put money on who's going to come out in third place as they get to the end of the straight. Mark Fish, I think, but coming alongside him as well and trying to challenge on the inside there is Steve Jones, number 15 as well. But Mark Fish, it was way up onto two wheels he goes. Mark Fish holds on to that third place at the moment. Hayden Measham there is fourth. Steve Jones there in fifth place behind him. Simon Fish tacked onto the end of that group, and we could just see some rain there. We heard that it used to be a rather slippery circuit in the past. They've resurfaced it to the circuit surface is certainly much improved over the past, but a little bit of dampness on it from this rain is going to make an awful lot of difference to the ability of these guys to continue this sort of pace and this sort of level of competition, I would have thought. Coming into the hairpin then, side by side for fourth place there. Hayden Measham on the inside, Steve Jones desperately trying to drive all the way around the outside. Simon Fish still tucked in there in sixth place. So even though we saw, we were in car, of course, when Simon went off on the exit of the chicane there, even though he lost all that ground, he's caught right back up with him again. Still 6 cars, any one of whom is capable of winning this race. Wardby and Mills first and second, Mark Fish third, Hayden Measham holding off at the moment. The strong challenges of Steve Jones for fourth, and in sixth place, Simon Fish. And now, see how Mike Mills has closed right up as the rain has come. He's closed right up onto the tailgate of Steve Wardby. They go left and right through the chicane onto Butcher's Straight. Approaching now Clark's Corner. Wardby still has the advantage at the moment, perhaps a couple of lengths as they exit from Clark's. The pace has slowed just a little. They're not running so wide on Clark's as they were in the earlier laps. Mills looks to the outside as they approach the hairpin. Hard on the brakes, into the hairpin goes Wardby, then Mills, then Mark Fish, then Measham, then Steve Jones. This time Steve Jones coming under more pressure from Simon Fish at the end of that leading half dozen cars. Along the straight, past the pits onto their final lap. Under the bridge they go. There's only another 1.3 miles or so left in which Mike Mills can find a way past Steve Wardby. At the moment, Wardby leads. At the moment, therefore, Wardby leads the Renault Clio Elf UK Cup for 1991 if he stays where he is for the remaining few corners of this Knockhill race. And what a cracking race the Scottish spectators have seen here today. Only one round in this championship yet to go. Wardby then will go into the final round as he stands at the moment with a small advantage. Brakes for Clark, so Wardby leads. Still Mike Mills can't find a way past. Of course, he's got to watch his own rearview mirror for Mark Fish tucked in behind him. There's Mills's teammate Graham De Silva, and he loses it and is passed as he does so by Bill Marks. But Marks goes all the way down the grass. As De Silva spun off. Back to the leaders though, really now pelting down. And I don't really think there's going to be a chance left for Mike Mills, as off goes Simon Fish at the hairpin on the very last lap as they come up to take the checkered flag. You see it there in the top left-hand corner of the picture. Steve Wardby then wins the penultimate round of the Renault Clio Elf UK Cup. Mike Mills is second, Mark Fish is third, Hayden Measham fourth, fifth is Steve Jones, and what a superb race as straight ahead at the hairpin goes, oh no, it's Derek Butcher again, thumps the tyres, see all the water splashing out of the tyres there. Let's hope that Derek Butcher does get going again. Confirmation in the results, Wardby wins from Mills, Mark Fish, Measham, Jones and Simon Fish in what, for my money, I think was the best Clio race of the season.
And staying at Knockhill, it was a terrible start for Jason Plato in the Formula Renault race. Harry Nuttall and the rest of the field fly past. Bobby Verdon-Rowe tucks himself up in second place. And Finn Murray takes his chance to lead. And Verdon-Rowe tries the outside, but he doesn't come off for it. Meanwhile, Plato runs along behind the rest of the field. Verdon-Rowe this time got it right. Finn Murray got it wrong, and they all went past. Antolainen moves up sharply. While Harry Nuttall passes a spinning Ringo Hein who's hunting for haggis. While Antolainen tries to dislodge Cottrell from second place. Fortified by the haggis, Ringo Hein has now caught up with Nuttall after that spin. But for Verdon Rowe, it was the checkered flag at Knock Hill. And for Nuttall and Hein, a certain amount of hard charging. And Nuttall had some more luck to come as he caught Antolainen on the line for second. October and Thruxton in the final round of the Formula Vauxhall Junior. Two men can win it, and Franchetti and Cuff are their names. But it's Freddie Van Buren who makes the best start. Unfortunately, he spins his chances away, but somehow they all miss it, while Jeff Prince has an accident all on his own. Peter Bell sets off for Andover as Franchetti leads Cuff through the chicane. And Cuff tries to catch the Scotsman. But then trouble intervenes and he falls backwards down the field. Freddie Van Buren up to second place. Thompson uses McGarity as a takeoff ramp, and it doesn't work. Freddie Van Buren takes the lead. And Sasha Pearl takes the spin. Now David Sonninger moves up and tries to snatch away Franchetti's place. And that fires up Franchetti again, who looks for the inside as they come towards Club and gets it. Van Buren can't leave it alone. The impossible doesn't work, except when you're facing the traffic and you just manage to keep the engine running. And so a win and a title for Dario Franchetti. In the final round of the Vauxhall Lotus at Silverstone, the red lights malfunctioned. Some saw the flag, some didn't. Among those that did, Oliver Gavin and Scott Lakin. The front row left wondering what was happening. And soon Lakin, pressuring, comes through into the lead. '90 Renault champion Thomas Erdos out of the race with Cuff. And Ali once again takes out someone else, and it's Nielsen this time. The absent Kelvin Burt takes the championship as Lakin takes the final win. Formula Renault from Thruxton, and the final round of that series. If Plato was to get his points under protest back, he might have taken the championship here. But Verdon Rowe knew what he had to do, and was second fastest in practice as if to prove it. Cottrell joining the top 6 there, and they're all pretty close together. Green flag, indicating that everybody's where they should be. Up go the revs, they're away, and a beautiful start there by number 6, Jason Plato. Superb start by Plato. Verdon Rowe hesitated a little bit at the start. And Plato it is who leads this very, very tight pack into the Campbell Cobb Seagrave sequence for the first time. Puff of smoke as somebody outbreaks himself at the back, but you can see how close this is. Still Plato, right behind him there. Going hard, going well, Adrian Cottrell. Another man to watch, and we get a spinner there. That's Ringo Hein. Ringo Hein out of the contest, really, right at the back of the field now. So the big surprise there, Ringo Hine, who could have caused a lot of problems for the front runners here, spun his chances away, just as we were keeping a fair eye on what was happening to Sean Breslin. Well, 3 cars there pretty close together, but that's not the dice for the lead. Well ahead of them now, Jace Plato. So this trio, within the middle of it, Burton Rowe there, has got a lot of work to do. There's Plato, already a respectable lead as far as he's concerned. And there's a real big squabble coming up. There's Burton Rowe looking at the outside, trying to get up to second place here. A very determined attack indeed. 1 down, 1 to go. He's up there on the inside, snatches away second place. And that was pretty tight. So, up to second place, Bobby Burton Rowe. Third place now as a result of that. Cottrell, and hanging on to it well there, Andy Sim, who we've not seen very much of since he's been racing out in America, determined not to give much ground there. Keep an eye out for Tommy Antolainen, the 21 years old Finnish driver. In number 1, he's a man to keep an eye to, definitely. When he goes well and stays on the track, he's very quick. Still a number of battles lower down in the order there, sorting out the places, but the real match race is on up at the front. Having got away a little bit, there's no doubt that Burton Rowe has got to close the gap on Plato. Plato's made a pretty good job of putting some distance between himself and the opposition. This is the 3rd, 4th, 5th battle still we're looking at. Sim springing the surprise. And you can see the gap between 1st and 2nd there. The battle indeed for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, all pretty tight at the moment. And Antolainen making his bid. Antolainen in number 1 gets ahead there. Cottrell tucked up behind now in 4th place. Then Andy Sim. And then Finn Murray also going well. There was a puff of smoke there from one car. That looks like Finn Murray to me, who's got a problem. And you can see the smoke streaming from the back of the car. And that is getting on the tyres. So Finn Murray wonders why he was sideways there. Anyway, now he's going to find out that's oil. Battle at the front beginning to hot up too. But Finn Murray, we feel, out of the contest. Let's just hope that he discovers the problem before he actually ends up sitting on the grass looking at where he came from. Very nearly did it again there. He must be aware now that all is not well. Here's the battle for the lead. Jason Plato in the lead. Bobby Burton Rowe in 2nd place. Just a year or so between these two drivers. It's been a tremendous match race between them nearly every time out. Tempers have become frayed from time to time, but by and large, they accept that as the 2 front runners in the championship, they've got to fight this one out cleanly to the flag. Brake locks up there. Oh, very tight onto the tail. Burton Rowe left his braking to the last possible moment and certainly got right up onto the tail of Plato, but almost clipped his tail in the effort. And Plato knows what's going on behind. You can be well aware of the fact that he is giving a due amount of consideration to what position he should take on the track. Still, in spite of that smoke, Fionn Murray soldiering on. Everybody's slithering about in his oil and trying to tell him what's happening. He doesn't seem to want to know, or does he care too much? He wants to be in there in the race, but it's a futile effort really on his part. Burton Rowe, wide line in tight now. And looks as if he might have made it. No, the door's shut. But Burton Rowe really pressuring all the way now on Plato. Tight up behind him, so tight in fact that the aerodynamics of the car are not as efficient as they might be if he was a little bit further back. But he hasn't got much choice if he's going to be the last of the late breakers coming down here towards the club chicane. And while this battle's going on, of course, Antolainen getting up there with him as alongside he comes. But it's the outside. And once again, Plato, who had the inside line, able to hold on to first position. Antolainen now right with them and nothing to choose between the 3 cars. Antolainen the joker in the pack really, because he can't do anything about the championship side of things, but he could upset some best laid plans there of Jason, as number 8, as we suggested, Fionn Murray has suddenly realised that there was something a little bit more than the car was a bit skittish, and that looks pretty expensive to me. Big effort once again sideways there. Verdon Rowe collects it together again. Same place, second lap through it, but now having another good crack as he comes up towards us this time, and might have done it. Yes, he has. So a very brave effort there takes Bobby Verdon Rowe into the lead, and Antolainen looks to try and get up past Plato. Tries the outside. Plato doesn't want to know about it. Both of them on the limit of the braking. Now the question is, can Verdon Rowe out in front stay there and not only win the race but go out in blazing form in this championship, which, as you've said, mathematically he can in fact win by not finishing first. He's got to finish well up, but he doesn't have to finish first. Jason Plato, however, does have to finish first and get the fastest lap and get pole position and get his points back. And he's not going to give in too easily. It's always easier to follow than to lead a race. Plato well aware of that. Plato well aware of the fact that if he can keep the pressure on, who knows, Verdon Rowe might do something funny. Positions himself right behind there. Will be looking for the inside line. Going round the outside never normally profits the driver behind, but the door's firmly shut. It has to be the outside. Gets onto the rough stuff, collects it back together again, and he's back where he started. A frustrating moment for a driver who knows that he must have the inside if he's going to get through. He can try any way possible, if you like, to pressure the man in front, but at the end of the day, it really has to be a mistake on his part that's going to give him a chance. There was a mistake, he came in wide, and they touch. And that sent number 2, Bobby Verdon Rowe, spinning out of the lead, back several places, and Plato didn't get away unscathed either, because the front aerofoil certainly got a hefty thwack. And that is, as you see, scraping on the floor, creating him problems, while Tommy Antolainen behind is creating him even more. Now, theoretically, a car with a damaged front spoiler will understeer a great deal more than the driver would want it to. But this is a quick circuit, and understeer around here isn't necessarily a huge disadvantage, providing it's not too much. Up comes Antolainen to take advantage. Now if he can close the gap, and no he can't. Back comes Plato. Remarkable bit of driving on Plato's part there. You can see that the front aerofoil is still in position. Let's look in replay at what happened. Verdon Rowe gets a bit sideways. Plato, with nowhere to go, clips him. Antolainen suddenly emerges from nowhere and misses him as well. So really, Mr. Plato was not at fault in any way there. And Mr. Verdon Rowe did rather get wide, did get a bit sideways, and threw away his own lead. So Plato still hanging on in there. As I was saying, the damage to that aerofoil is not obviously giving him so much trouble understeer-wise that he's losing out too much time. And providing he doesn't get any worse, it'll be okay. Number 7, Harry Nuttall, doesn't have anything going well for him today. He's out of the contest. Antolainen presses home another attack on Plato, and Verdon Rowe comes up to 3rd place again, recovering fast from that incident. The man who suffers there as a result of that particular manoeuvre is Andy Sim as they go into the last lap. Drops a place. The question now, can Verdon Rowe close on that leading pair? While they fight so closely together, it's always on the cards they might be caught napping. Sim in a good 4th place, didn't give much ground there. But this is the last lap, and Antolainen, the man with all the work to do. Plato showing a degree of experience, keeping the door closed, driving with one eye in the mirror, the one eye in front of him, and just making quite sure that he makes that car as wide as possible. But this P&O Ferris Formula Renault Championship coming to a shattering conclusion, as we've said. Plato has done everything that could be asked of him. He's won the race. Verdon Rowe, however, knew that he had to have a good placing to make sure of getting the championship. In spite of the spin, he's got that. For the last time up they come. Antolenen makes his bid for the lead. Looks at the outside. It's a silly place to try. He knows it won't work. It doesn't work. All three cars now absolutely packed together. Indeed, fourth man, Andy Sim right with them. As the flag comes out, Jason Plato wins. Tommy, Antolenen finishes in second place. Verdon Rowe finishes third. In fourth place, Andy Sim after a very good drive indeed. The next two places, Adrian Cottrell from that bad start and Sean Breslin sixth. The first start of the final round of the Renault Clio Elf UK Cup. And Renault sold two cars. One to Andy Ackley and one to Mark Fish. Both drivers perfectly all right, but one man felt a bit left out. At the restart, after the red flag, this is what he did about it. So now it's three new cars for Renault, and the other man to ride out the check was Paul Ingram, finding Jeff Goodliffe plenty of work to do during the winter. As it was, no question about the winner, Mills with a huge lead, but not enough to take the championship away from Wardby. Rick Shortle leads off the final round of the Mobile Honda CRX Challenge at Castle Coombe. And Warren Briggs makes this something like the first round as far as Lisa Thackwell's concerned. Only worse. For all that, no harm done to the drivers, but the car's a sorry state. And Andy Ackley forcing his way through to finish where he normally has this year. Out in front to take the championship very comfortably indeed. So the winners in the 1991 British Motorsport Yearbook, Andy Ackley in the Mobile Honda CRX Challenge, Formula Vauxhall Lotus to Kelvin Burt, Formula Vauxhall Junior to Dario Franchitti, and the Frank Shorter Porsche Super Cup to David Warnock. In the Autofarm Porsche Championship, John Greasley. In the Formula Renault, Bobby Verdon Rowe. In the Renault Clio Elf UK Cup, Steve Wardby.